It's great to see everybody tonight. As Sam mentioned, it's really a bittersweet experience that we have to actually give lectures on this in the world we lived in. I was telling the sheriff, Paul Arteta, and our new commissioner, Pete Srigliano, and I did a couple interviews with the media before we started here today. And I said, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have to do this. The three of us all have little kids in schools. My kids are doing active shooter drills in elementary school. That was not heard of a decade ago. But this is unfortunately the world we live in. I will tell you, I am grateful for the team that we have here. We have a top-notch team. Everybody that works for me in emergency services has decades in either law enforcement, fire, EMS, or the military, or a little bit of a few of them. We take command when people do not take command. We're going to leave here, the sheriff and I, we're going to give a speech to the Association of Town Supervisors tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about budgeting and economics, but I'm going to also talk about emergency management. You remember Highland Falls, where we had the flooding back in July. We had a woman that unfortunately passed away. We had over 950 houses that were flooded. The county had to step in and run incident command for the first 48 hours because nobody else could. My secretary, now chief of staff, Mary Pat, who was an admin type of person in an office, was running a Red Cross shelter. That's the type of world that we live in. We give phenomenal educational opportunities in this county. We do CPR every week. If any of you have not done CPR or you're a little bit rusty, come out, make it a date night, bring your friends, go out for dinner afterwards. I have seen, I got to tell you, at least in the last I fly a lot for the military around the country and around the world. Half the flights I've been on, they ask for somebody that has emergency medical care to help somebody save someone's life. And out of 200 and something people, I think at least half the time I've had to step up with some other volunteers to help. People lack that basic skill to help other people. It's a powerful weapon, and it's a powerful feeling to at least try to make sure you can do that. The other class we do is we do a citizen readiness class. So when we have floods or fires, you have the power out for a week. Maybe you're an able-bodied citizen, but your neighbors are elderly or maybe disabled. Do you know the basic things, how long to boil water, what you need to do to basically survive until help can come? In the military, we call it how to prepare to self-rescue, right? If there's an emergency situation, we're going to be talking about active shooter. You're going to freeze, you're going to panic, or you're going to be able to save yourself, your family, your colleagues. I am so proud of the people that put this together. We worked on this over a year ago. It's not a comfortable feeling. It's literally, I have no fear as your county executive and as a military officer. I can go anywhere, do anything, get presented with anything. This type of stuff scares me because they will tell you these things are over in a few minutes. So the basic skills that you have and the basic response times and the training that our first responders have is going to make all the difference to have hopefully a good outcome. So again, I want to thank you guys for being here today. One last thing. You drove through the parking lot, you're like, what the heck is going on here? We're in the midst of building a major medical examiner's building on the other side of the parking lot. It'll be state-of-the-art. We're doing serious stuff and serious investments for emergency management in this county, and you should be proud. So thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Tonight, your presenter is an experienced individual who has spent all of his adult life committed to emergency operations and response. For 17 years, he's been serving our country with the United States Coast Guard and is still a reservist as a Chief Petty Officer. He spent the last 11 years with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, 7 of them being on the Special Operations Group. He has extensive training in incident command and management and is a wealth of knowledge for our agency, and I'm sure you'll feel the same way after hearing this presentation tonight. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Robert Rabbit.
Thank you and good evening. Like Samantha and Jason said, I'm Robert Rabbit, team leader with Special Operations Group of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And today we're going to give you a presentation on your civilian response to active shooter events. Some of the information we're going to present tonight might make some of you angry. It might stress you out. It might make you very uncomfortable. But the reality is that these events are happening throughout the country, and it's just a matter of time before it happens in Orange County. So we want to give you the tools that when you're finding yourself in an active attack event, you have the resources to resort back to your lowest level of training, which we'll get into, and how to either avoid, deny, or defend. The video we put together, we're going to show the entirety of the video. It's not meant for shock and awe. It's to give you a quick synopsis of what to expect. Before we start the video, I just want you to imagine that this is the place of your school, daycare, business, or your civilian shopping, or out enjoying your family time, and an event like this happens in front of you.
In this scenario, a suspect arrives at a school with a weapon and the intention of doing harm.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I'm get it. Let's get it. Where's Kenny? I'm after Kenny. You want to fail me in your class?
The suspect is able to gain entry into the school building by a side door location that was propped open.
I'm looking for Wallace. Where is he? Where is he?
Upon hearing the first shots fired, building security and administration initiate a school-wide lockdown, and the emergency notification system is immediately activated. At this time, the building's occupants go into lockdown. Any occupants of the building who cannot lock down begin to self-evacuate.
And move quickly to a secure location and follow our lockdown procedures.
Simultaneously, Orange 911 receives automatic lockdown notification and initiates its active shooter dispatch protocol.
Where are you, Wally? Wally boy! Where are you?
As the shooter continues his rampage, first responders are en route to the scene. First on the scene is the school safety deputy identified as SSD1, who hears gunfire and transmits confirmation of an active shooter at his location.
SSD1 to Orange 911 priority.
Orange 911 is on SSD1.
SSD1 to Orange 911. Be advised, active shooter at my location, building 447 Gibson Road, 7 additional units.
Orange 911 to any available units. Respond for an active shooter at BOCE C-Tech, building 447 Gibson Road.
Sheriff 13 en route.
Ranger 515 are out. Middletown Car 11 are out.
SSD1, Orange 911. I'm going in. Side door, alley side.
The deputy then enters the building in search of the threat, following the sounds of yelling and gunfire.
Please enter into lockdown mode and move quickly to a
SSD1 will bypass any discovered victims, as his first priority is to find the shooter and stop the violent act.
lockdown.
SSD1, Orange 911. Suspect, shots fired at my location. Victims observed in the area of room 403. I'm moving toward the gunfire.
Procedures.
SSD1 continues in search of the gunman, responding in the direction of gunfire.
Lockdown. The building is now in lockdown. Please enter
SSD1 confronts and neutralizes the shooter.
and follow our lockdown procedures. Lockdown.
SSD1, Orange 911. Shots fired by police. Suspect down. Be advised, I'm in room 420. I am secure.
Orange 911 to responding units. Be advised, SSD1 has confirmed shooter down at his location, room 420, first floor.
At the same time, additional police units begin to arrive on the scene and enter the building, responding to stimulus. SSD1 communicates with responding resources the location of discovered victims if possible.
SSD1 to Orange 911. Advise additional units. There are several injured victims in building 400. I need units to respond to victims' locations and back up my location.
Contact Team 1 also discovers numerous injured civilians in multiple classrooms. At this point, Contact Team 1 has two objectives: stop the killing by neutralizing the threat, but also to stop the dying. Contact Team 1, considering the situation, available resources, and ability to communicate, can provide immediate tactical emergency care to the injured if life-saving measures cannot wait. Once law enforcement has secured a safe corridor, medical personnel will be escorted into the building by additional law enforcement officers. The team of emergency medical service providers and firefighters will assist in providing further medical aid and the evacuation of injured victims. Simultaneously, Ambulances will arrive on the scene. Victims will be evacuated and transported to local hospitals based on the severity of their injuries, as recorded by medical professionals on scene. Law enforcement personnel will conduct secondary searches to ensure there are no additional threats or injuries. Once the location is deemed to be secure, a systematic evacuation of the building will begin. Uninjured civilians will be escorted and transported to a secondary location if necessary. After the building is completely evacuated, law enforcement will maintain control of the crisis point until a thorough investigation has been completed.
All right, so that was a quick video of a police response to an active killing event. We spent the last 2 decades as law enforcement training of how we're going to respond to a civilian response to active shooting. But how much training has been put out to a civilian? Every year I have to sit through mandatory training of how to advance and respond to an active shooter event. But we want to make sure the civilians in Orange County know when this happens to me, the physiological and psychological effects it's going to have on my body and how I respond accordingly. And that's why we're putting this information out. Why are we here? We're here tonight so we can increase the survivability of victims during an active event, stress the importance of having pre-planned response options, and define avoid, run, hide, fight. Avoid, deny, defend, also known as run, hide, fight. When you watch the video that we just went through, did that make anybody mad? Did it stress anybody out? Make you upset? When you hear the news, it's very upsetting. If you're like me, when you watch the TV and you see something happening, you start getting closer to the TV because you want to get involved. As a civilian, you need to know how to defend yourself and the ones you care about the most. And that's the training we're going through tonight. The data comes from the last 2 decades, from 2000 to approximately 2020, with about 316 active killing events recorded. All the data tonight is compromised through ALERT, which is the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Program, and it's the information we want to put out to you, not second-guessing how civilians or first responders acted in the past, but to show you that we learn from the data and how we can move forward and make sure this reduces our risk to liability. An active attack is defined by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as an individual or individuals actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active attackers use firearms, and there's no pattern for their method or their selection of victims. So everyone always heard of active shooter, but we're calling it active attack because it's not always a firearm. Mainly a firearm, but it could be an edged weapon as a knife, it could be a vehicle, or it could be an improvised explosive device. So when you hear the term active attack, it's similar to active shooter, just we can't always guarantee a firearm is involved. When we look at the risk factors for a suspect, there is no profile of an active attacker, right? We could all Google right now what the FBI defines as a serial killer and who's most likely to be one. It's going to be a white male, average age of 24 to 35. When it comes to an active event suspect, there is no profile. They originate from all backgrounds of life. Most attacks are perpetrated by males, and the ages range from teens to late 80s. Attackers from all major ethnic and racial groups in the United States, and 98% of attacks act alone. So knowing that information, it's hard to second guess, could we have seen this coming? But through the data of the last 20 years and the several hundred active killing events that we've witnessed, there are some indicators involved in it. The next list is an all-inclusive, saying if they meet any part of this criteria, report them right away, but it's signs we could look for. If you're in a school setting or in a place of employment, you can refer them to a guidance counselor, human resources, whatever service your agency or school facility takes. History of violence. You're going to know your coworkers better than me. You'll know your neighbors, the students you entrust. Exposure to violence. If you're in a school setting, you know the background of the children, you know their family lifestyle, it's easier for you to track than law enforcement who has never had interaction with any of these people. Substance abuse, whether from the person or their family. Mental illness. History of suicidality. Stalking, harassing, or threatening behavior, or negative family dynamics or support systems. Isolation or instability. This is not an all-inclusive list, and we're not saying, hey, identify some people in your surroundings as of today that meet this criteria, but showing through the data, these are factors we can take a look at instead of saying like, oh, I should have seen this coming. It's things we can start referring to the appropriate services to get them the help to try and stop the next attack from happening. When we talk about where the attacks happen, we always think of a school, right? Because children are most precious to us. But when you actually look at the data of the last 20 years, the active attack event is more common happening at places of commerce. These are your shopping retail facilities, grocery stores, retail facilities. That's where most of your active attack events are happening. When you look at education, they comprise of a quarter of the active attack events. Then we go to outdoor events, such as outdoor concerts, large venues of large gatherings, which we can see in the Hudson Valley. Every weekend during season, we have large group gatherings, and that's why you see the heavy police presence. Then we look at other, which is a little over 10%. Those are your churches, your hospitals, your military bases. So yes, the data shows that it's more likely to happen at a place of commerce, but data also shows that it can happen anytime, anywhere. Anybody that serves the United States military, you feel as safe as possible on a military base. You don't expect an active attack event to happen, but they are still happening everywhere. When we look at the connection and saying, oh, looking back in hindsight, could we have prevented this? The data of the last 20 years shows that approximately 45% of the active attack events have no connection to the area they perform their mass murder in. 55% do have connection. If we round that down to about 50-50, it shows that if you enable a soft target or a hard target at your location, you may or may not be able to prevent the active attack from happening. Looking back, and we saw in the video that we had the side door left open, easy access to come in. Knowing that, going through your rounds, whether it's your school, your place of work, making sure your doors are locked, making sure people are following all the security protocols, that help enhances your capability. When we talk about the connection, when we look at the suspects for the active attack events, they felt they were wronged, and they're either correctly or incorrectly showing justification for their actions. They want to release violence to release that anger so they feel better. It's usually not pre-planned and spontaneous. People aren't waking up first thing in the morning and decided, hey, today's the day, I'm going to go run an active attack event on a school. These are usually drawn out. They research it. They invest in it. They may be posting on social media to family members, to friends. If you have children in the audience and everything else, you have to tell them if they hear people talking about this out loud, you witness it, a coworker saying something, you have to report it so law enforcement can do their pre-investigation to verify that it was just a person making an off-color joke, they're being silly, or this is a credible threat. If we just start ignoring the see something, say something, we can now be liable to enabling a suspect to commit the active attack. We look at target availability and how quickly the police arrive. When we talk about target availability, if you work in a school setting, think of when a classroom breaks and the students are moving from class to class. It's a thin hallway, several dozen to 100 kids in a school hallway. If we're talking about Black Friday weekend, Woodbury Commons, the Galleria Mall, you have several hundred people in large attendance. That makes that target-rich environment for an active attack suspect. What we need you to make a pact to us during the presentation is that you listen to the model that will cover of avoid, deny, defend, learn how the stressors are going to interact with your body, and how you as a civilian might have to take a lead with other civilians and guide them to safety. Because we're all going to be looking at each other for cues, and if at least you sat through this course for 45 minutes, you know, hey, this isn't right, let's do something about it, people will start following the leader, right? If somebody looks like they know what they're doing, people will follow them. How quickly the police arrive. The national average for police officers arriving on scene is 3 minutes. That's 3 minutes from the first time the phone gets picked up at 911, dispatched to the closest unit, and they arrive on scene. That's the national average. It doesn't say to be any less for certain areas in Orange County, or it could be greater, right? The national average is 3 minutes. If you have a school security deputy or a school resource officer on scene, we know that response time is going to be greater. Depending on your location and the size of your student body, they might have to go up several floors, move across different buildings. It increases the time. 3 minutes seems like a nice stable to be proud of. 3 minutes is a very long time for first responders to get on scene. We know that most active intent suspects have a firearm. If anybody's very familiar with their firearm, you can inflict a lot of casualties and fatalities in 3 minutes. Knowing that 3 minutes is a very long time in an active killing event, we need you to start following the model that we're going to explain in the next several slides. The next video is broken down from the main video we watched. You'll see the suspect enter the building, fire his rounds, and the school security deputy get notified. I want you to envision that is your place of work, you're off duty, you're shopping, or that's your school, and this attack happens in front of you or down the hall, how you would respond.
In this scenario, a suspect arrives at a school with a weapon and the intention of doing harm.
Yeah, get it. Let's get it. Where's Kenny? I'm after Kenny. You want to fail me in your class?
The suspect is able to gain entry into the school building by a side door location that was propped open.
I'm looking for Wallace. Where is he? Where is he?
Upon hearing the first shots fired, building security and administration initiate a school-wide lockdown, and the emergency notification system is immediately activated. At this time, the building's occupants go into lockdown. Any occupants of the building who cannot lock down begin to self-evacuate.
And move quickly to a secure location and follow our lockdown procedures.
Simultaneously, Orange 911 receives automatic lockdown notification and initiates its active shooter dispatch protocol.
So now we imagine that active attack event happened in front of us. How are we going to respond? How are we going to feel when the response is happening? And that's what we're going to cover next. In an active attack event, you're going to go through 3 stages. This is known as your disaster response. This is the background science of how people handle themselves under stress. And it comes in 3 stages. Stage 1 is your denial. Your stage 2 is your deliberation. And your stage 3 is your decisive movement. I'm going to explain in the next few slides how we get through each stage as fast as possible. We want to spend as little time in denial and deliberation and move directly into a decisive movement. So in denial, it's defined by author Amanda Ripley as normalcy bias. This is when our brains tend to interpret information as part of our everyday experience. Right, a scenario we look at is if you're laying in bed at night, you feel safe in the comfort of your own home, you start hearing a noise come from downstairs. Whether you live with somebody else or by yourself and you're like, that doesn't seem right, but it's probably just the dog, the boiler's kicking on, whatever it is. Several more minutes, you're still there thinking about it. Instead of just getting up, grabbing a flashlight and investigating what it is and going back to bed, you deny it. You deny that anything bad is happening. It's more common for people to deny that the disaster is happening. Robert Cialdini describes social proof as the tendency to look to other people for cues of how to behave in novel or ambiguous situations. Law enforcement knows how to respond during an active attack event. We've been trained on it for decades. I spoke about it shortly ago that as a civilian, not a lot of people have the training experience. Now that you're sitting through the presentation, it might be for you to step up and say, hey guys, grab your stuff, we're out of here. This does not make sense. This is a bad feeling, let's move on. And people will start following you because you look like you know what you're talking about. They did a research in 2005 about September 11th, 2001. They talked to employees that survived the towers, and during the research, they said, hey, how long did it take your floor to evacuate the building? They said, well, we heard the loud explosion, and we felt the entire building move. And it took members that were further away from the crash site an average of 3 minutes of denying it that something happened, talking about it amongst their peers, and then finally after 3 minutes they said, let's get my personal belongings calmly, and they moved towards the emergency exit calmly. This wasn't rampage where people just got up and started running. Even in the World Trade Center, it denied that one of the worst events in the United States history was occurring for people that were actually on scene. Furthermore, the research showed that people who were closer to the impact site denied that something bad was happening for over 5 minutes. Closer to the impact, closer to the explosion, and it still took 5 minutes before they said we should leave. 3 to 5 minutes isn't a long time, but in a major catastrophe, that's a lot of lives that could have been saved. We'll talk about it during the avoid, deny, defend model, but the minute you see something that's out of the normal bias and it's uncomfortable, don't question it, move past the denial phase as fast as possible, and leave the area. It'd be easier to get made fun of in 20 minutes and laugh about an hour later that you overreacted than us mourning you at your funeral because you underreacted. The faster we get through the denial phase, we move to the deliberation phase. At this point, people in disaster have to decide what to do. For the person who does not have a pre-existing plan, this creates a serious problem because the effects of life-threatening stress on your bodily systems severely your limit to both perceive information and make appropriate response plans. When I started the presentation, I explained where the emergency exits were. I said there was one up to the right, and there's one behind you to the left. You don't have to raise your hands, but did anybody even notice the emergency exit back behind us on the left? Most civilians, when they come into a facility, they get comfortable, they sit down, and they only remember their last main egress point. What we're trying to put into the training is we're not trying to make you be like military or first responders, but you have to start being aware of your surroundings. Once again, they did research into the station nightclub where they had a band performing with a pyrotechnic set display. The pyrotechnics faulted and caused a fire in the main stage. For several minutes, people saw the fire getting out of control. They denied it, and they didn't make deliberate action. They kept saying like, oh, it'll get under control, it'll get under control. By the time they got through the deliberate action and started moving towards the emergency exit door, several hundred people moved towards the main egress point. It caused over 100 fatalities from the fire. During the research, they showed there was 4 emergency exits inside the facility. They're coming to the consensus that people only recognized the door they came in, enjoyed the venue, weren't aware of their surroundings. When the emergency kicked off, all they knew was, hey, something's not right, I have to leave. And several hundred people in the stadium had the same idea, and all try to exit through the same door. So we're saying anytime you go anywhere, whether it's your place of business, your school, you're off enjoying your recreational time, just be very aware of your surroundings and know if something happens right now, where can I move to safety as fast as possible? We're going to talk about your 2 basic operating systems, which go into play with your avoid, deny, defend, and your denial, deliberation, and decisive movement. We have your human brain, which is your rational brain, and then we have your lizard brain, which is your emotional brain. We're all animals, and every animal has a lizard brain. That's your more primitive, instinctive behavior. In our human brain, we're conscious about the event occurring. That's the human brain. It allows us to learn, weigh options, and develop plans. Right? So if we're in a normal setting, our heart rate's low, and we have a house project to do, that's easy to weigh options. Say, all right, I need to change my light bulb, as simple as it is. I know I need to turn the light off, get the light bulb cool. I know I need a stepping stool. I know I need a proper light bulb to change it out. If we're having the same home fix-it with a water pipe, I know I need all my tools accordingly. But the minute it starts leaking and I hit a water line, I know immediately I kick into my instincts. We either try and stop the water or you go right to the shut-off valve. It's almost instinctive of like, oh no, this is an emergency. I need to act accordingly. We're not going to sit there and second guess what's happening. Your human brain comes at a cost of speed. This is your reaction time. The more levels of stress that's ongoing to your body because the event you're experiencing lowers your cognitive function. You start thinking less clear and you start resorting to your lizard brain. Your human brain is slower and doesn't function well under stress, which we'll cover the next few slides. Your lizard brain obviously recognizes when noise is a threat. The startle reflex begins the process for our body to act. Imagine you're walking around your house, your child jumps out of the corner, you walk into somebody at the store, hands immediately come up to the center of your body, and you're ready to defend. That's your lizard brain because it's primitive. You're instinctively going to defend yourself. There was no thought process of like, all right, person jumped out, I step back, hands come up to defend. It's just naturally something that's programmed into us. Your heart rate, breathing, and blood flow to the large muscles all increase us to prepare to act physically. Your fear response causes an increased focus on the threat. Our immune system will increase in preparation for injury. You're utilizing your lizard brain allows our body's machinery to operate at its fullest extent during times of crisis. These changes make us fast, stronger, and more focused. It's easier to explain to the police officers that we're on the firing line, we hear the command threat, gun, audible noise. We don't think about it. My gun gets drawn, and I engage the target. It's very fast. Think of your lizard brain as you're driving your motor vehicle. You're texting, you might be excessive speeding, car stops heavy in front of you. Your reaction is to step on your brake to reduce that motor vehicle accident. That's your lizard brain taking over. It's instinctive. We talk about sensory side effects of stress. This is compiled over the last 2 decades, but it's also for first responders. You'll have tunnel vision. Your field of focus might narrow to only the most immediate threat, and you might not see your peripheral details. We talk about it that I have tunnel vision. We know to train that I look completely left and I look completely right to break my tunnel vision so I'm not stuck on whatever threat's in front of me. If this happens to you in an active attack event, you could have the same training as police. You're looking left and you're looking right. That's for egress points, positions of cover, ways to fortify yourself to keep yourself away from the suspect. Auditory exclusion, you might stop hearing what is happening. It's been reported several times that in a stressful environment, I could be talking to you directly in the face and you have no idea what I'm saying because you're almost on mute. Time dilation, things seem to move in slow motion. So the event's happening at a fast-paced time. But when you look back at it, you're like, yeah, I was moving in slow motion. That felt out of place. You're still moving at a normal pace, but everything feels like it's slowed down, your reactionary time increases, and you start recognizing more threats coming your way. Out-of-body experiences, you might feel as if you're watching yourself from out of body. I'm sure we've all felt an out-of-body experience before, but you're going to be sitting there being like, how is this happening to me? I can't believe this is happening to me, and you're not taking control of the situation because the stress is reducing how your human brain reacts. And your reduced motor skills. You might experience reduced fine motor skills. Depending on the place you work, the school setting you're in, to lock your door, you might not have a flip. You might actually have to put a hard key in and turn it. It's something we do every single day to get inside our house, in our place of work, our school, but have you ever had to do it under stress? Right? You're now trying to get that little key into a little hole as your whole body's shaking and you're not able to get it in and you're unable to lock that door. Unlocking your iPhone or your tablet or whatever you have. As simple as you've typed in that passcode 100 times to unlock your phone and talk to whoever you need to, in a stressful environment, it's been reported that people can't even unlock their own phone. We look at the stress response for your beats per minute. So obviously we know where an active attack event is happening directly in front of us. The item on your left, or my left, the white box, that's known as condition white. Let's say average person has 60 beats per minute. That's us sitting in this area right now. There's no harm to us. We feel great. We have full control over all of our sensors. As our stress levels rise up, we start moving through the code color. Every time we move to condition yellow, red, gray, and black, we start reducing cognitive function. We start making less logical decisions. We start losing fine motor skills. By the time we find ourselves in condition black, we are completely frozen. We are unable to think. We are unable to move. You have that feeling of you have to go to the bathroom. That's because your body is so stressed, you can't do anything, and you're not preserving yourself. So the next few slides are going to teach you how to bring down your stress levels in like a little cheat code, how to reduce it. Even if we can get back to code red, we're still going to be stressed. Our logical thinking might not be as great as it is in this environment right now, but we'll still be able to unlock our phone. We'll be able to call out to 911. We'll be able to lock those doors. So the next video, you're going to see the suspect walking through the school, still engaging on his rampage, and you're going to see the SSD enter and neutralize the suspect. That is the first priority of all law enforcement as we respond to an active attack event.
Where are you, Molly? Molly boy! Where are you?
As the shooter continues his rampage, first responders are en route to the scene. First on the scene is the school safety deputy identified as SSD1, who hears gunfire and transmits confirmation of an active shooter at his location.
SSD1 to Orange 911 priority.
Orange 911 is on SSD1.
SSD1 to Orange 911. Be advised, active shooter at my location, building 400-47 Gibson Road, 7 additional units.
Orange 911 to any available units. Respond for an active shooter at BOCE Tech, building 400-47 Gibson Road.
Sheriff 13 en route. Ranger 515 en route. Middletown car 11 en route.
SSD1, Orange 911. I'm going in. Side door, alley side.
The deputy then enters the building in search of the threat, following the sounds of yelling and gunfire.
Please enter into lockdown mode and move quickly to a
SSD1 will bypass any discovered victims, as his first priority is to find the shooter and stop the violent act.
lockdown.
SSD1, Orange 911. Suspect, shots fired at my location. Victims observed in the area of room 403. I'm moving toward the gunfire.
Procedures.
SSD-1 continues in search of the gunman, responding in the direction of gunfire.
Lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. The building is now in lockdown. Please enter
SSD-1 confronts and neutralizes the shooter.
and follow our lockdown procedures. Lockdown.
SSD-1, Orange 911. Shots fired by police. Suspect down. Be advised. I'm in room 420. I am secure.
Orange 911 to responding units, be advised. SSD-1 has confirmed shooter down at his location, room 420, first floor.
So in that video, we know law enforcement is going to respond to the scene, and we're moving directly to the attacker to neutralize the threat. This is also going to be happening simultaneously with you moving through your disaster response. If you have an SSD or an SRO on scene, you might still be doing the lockdown drill or lockdown scenario in real time as police are still on scene, depending on their initial response time. While you still find yourself in deliberation phase to make clear, decisive movements, there's a few cheats we can do. You need to calm yourself. It sounds a lot easier said than done, but when you say calm yourself, you need to deep dive into you and get that willpower to survive. If we say, hey, I'm a victim today, that's it, I'm throwing the towel, I'll never see my family or friend, loved ones again, you'll become a victim. This is the willpower comes in. Willpower has shown that when you say, I'm a survivor, I will not lose, I'll fight through this, it'll help lower your stress levels down to make the next decision. We talk about breathing. We talk about it with first responders all the time, military all the time. Combat breathing, also known as box breathing. If you find yourself in a super stressful environment, you're going to breathe 3 seconds in, hold for 2 seconds, exhale for 3 seconds, hold for 2 seconds, and repeat. This has been proven to lower your beats per minute, which lowers the effects of stress on your body. This won't solve the day and stop stress from overtaking you, but this will fight it long enough that you can start making clear, deliberate decisions on what to do next. We talk about shifting your emotion. This might seem a little graphic, but there's nothing more personal than somebody trying to actively kill you, students you're in charge of, coworkers you care about, or taking you away from your loved ones. We shouldn't have fear. The first emotion that comes to our mind should be anger. If we look at fear, fear is known to show that we have paralysis. It'll stop us from reacting. If we move that to anger and we start taking it personal of saying like, all right, I'm in it and we're gonna get through this and I'm now upset, and we start reacting, shifting from fear to anger has also shown to enhance the cognitive function a little bit longer than staying in fear. We talk about staying fit. This isn't a physical fitness seminar, but it's been proven that the fitter you are, the better your body regulates back to homeostasis. They use the example, if I wake up every morning and I have a rigorous physical activity, or at the end of my day, I have some kind of exercise, my sleep habits are better, I'm less stressful, I'm eating cleaner, my body will have a less reaction time. If I have a fitness regime and I'm walking around at a stress level 3 all day, when the active attack event happens in front of me and now I jump to 10, I'll be able to regulate my emotions back down that scale a lot faster than somebody who's walking around at an 8 24/7 because they aren't fit and everything stresses them out because they're not sleeping, they're not eating proper nutrition, and they're not exercising to help their body. Now we're going to look at how to prepare. We're going to talk about scripting, is thinking through the if-then scenarios and practice them in your head before a stressful event occurs. First responders do this all the time. I get called on the radio for a motor vehicle accident with an injury. I know as I'm en route several minutes, first thing I have to do is place my marked unit on the side of the road in a safe area. First thing I do is I get out, I go to my trunk, I get my medical bag, and I start moving to triage the most seriously injured. It's something simple scripting that we don't forget it. I run up to the scene, I go, oh, I need my medical bag, and I run back. You can all do scripting every day in whatever function you have. If you sit in an office setting and you said, hey, if a fire happened today, what do I have to do? I know what the office I'm assigned to. Fire happens, I step up, I exit my office, I make a right, and I'm straight to the first emergency exit. I know if the fire is in that direction, I can't go that way. When I leave my office, I make a left, another left to the end of the hallway, and I have my secondary egress route. This is something you guys can practice all day in any lifestyle you have, whether you're out eating dinner, shopping, or working. Scripting is very easy to do. If you're in a school setting, work setting, and you're in charge of the school security protocols or your building security protocols, you start practicing your plans through scripting. You'll have a facilitator, you'll run your practice plan, you'll come out, see what flaws you had during the plan, you'll write the course correction announcements, and then you'll rerun it in a week or a month, whatever your timeline is, to practice any mistakes you had during your scenario. We look at the plan you have thought beforehand as also likely to be better of quality than one you come up with on the spot. So we're not saying everybody's emergency action plan that you have at your facility, your school setting, your business, or your off-duty is going to be 100% perfect, but it's better from what we've learned when the stress overtakes our body and we can't think clear enough that I'm going to make a logical decision of how to save my life, my children's lives, or somebody I care about. Have a plan. It doesn't have to be flawless, but you have to have a plan. Once we get through the denial and deliberation phase, we're moving as fast as we can to decisive movement. Once a decision has been made, act quickly and decisively. We all have it in leadership training that the leader that makes a decision fast on the fly, even though he knows it's not the best or most correct, it's a better plan than somebody who can't make a decision. If I say, hey guys, get up, we're moving to this exit, instead of talking about it for 5 minutes, we'll move to that exit. If it slowed us down but everyone stayed alive, we'll look at it in the after action and say, all right, next scenario, we move to the door to the left because that's a better emergency egress. Failure to act quickly can result in you remaining in a position to be injured during an active shooter event, fire, or other type of disaster. We know that an active attack event is usually over in less than 5 minutes. If we're spending several minutes in denial, we're spending several minutes in deliberation, by the time the suspect confronts us at our classroom door, our place of business, or where we're shopping, we might find ourselves to become a victim. So the faster we get through the first 2 stages and move to decisive movement is going to save your life and other people's lives that you care about. Playing dead or hiding and hoping are not effective strategies. The data has shown that if you decide to freeze, lay on the floor, and pretend you're dead, the active attack suspects may still come up to you and still shoot you. We cannot just lay there and say they'll step over me. The data shows that it's not an effective strategy. Hiding and hoping. Instead of listening to the next few slides, we'll talk about barricading doors, avoiding, denying. If we're looking just to hide under my desk and think he'll bypass me, if they find you, that's not a plan because you have no escape route. The model we want you all to follow today is avoid, deny, defend, also known as run, hide, fight. This model is based on a natural tendency to fight or flee a threatening stimulus. This is your lizard brain response that we talked about. They're hardwired into us from birth and are reflexive. Therefore, they're very easy to apply under stress. There's not much thinking when it says, hey, something's bad, let me avoid it. Something bad's coming closer, let me deny them access to me. And last resort, I defend myself. Those are our natural instincts taking place. We look at avoid, run. Your conventional wisdom tells us there are 3 bad things we should always attempt to avoid. Bad people, bad locations, bad times. We would never put ourselves in this kind of situation unknowingly. We want to just walk in and say, hey, this seems like a terrible night, but I'm going to go for it anyway. The example we use is you have your family in the vehicle, it's low, late at night, your gas light comes on, and you're like, hey, I need to stop and get gas. You look to the right, the gas station to your right is low lit, people hanging out front, looks very unfriendly to a family, or you look left and you see a well-lit gas station, family-friendly oriented, people everywhere. Knowingly, always assessing our surroundings, we're going to turn left because it seems like the safer bet. Always know the escape routes you can take and your secondary exits. Moving forward after tonight, when you're back to your place of work, whether it's a school, business, retail center, or you're just off duty, walking around, shopping, you should always have it in here. I came in this way, where do I go next? How do I get out of this situation? When we gave the presentation to the county executive, Steve Neuhaus, he said it, a couple of our members say they have code words for their family. When they're in a public setting and they see somebody that doesn't look friendly or looks harmful, they say some word that's outstanding, it drives their family away from him, and they meet back at their vehicle or another location. Instead of now in the family group setting, you have to explain to your wife and children and spend several minutes trying to argue with them about why you need to separate. It's easier to have that pre-plan. When we talk about avoiding, the first opportunity you should leave the area. We talked about the denial. It's a real thing through your social proof and normalcy bias. They have an example of a school board meeting out in Texas. A parent of one of the students stood up and he started spray painting an A for an anarchy in the middle of the room. You see in the video, several people stood up and said, "Not for me, this isn't normal," and they immediately left the area. Other people denied that something weird was happening and they stayed on scene. Next thing he took out was a firearm and he started pointing at the school board. Same video, you see people get up and go, "Nope, not for me," and they left the immediate area. More people stayed because they were in that denial phase that he won't really pull the trigger. We don't want that to happen. If something seems not right, leave at first chance. When we say call 911 when safe, we want you to leave the immediate area, and when you feel safe, call 911. We don't want you to stay in the crisis point where the active attack event is happening. You're not getting out of the area with yourself, your family, friends, students, coworkers. When safe, you call 911. We're not staying in the location where something bad is happening. In this video, you're going to see the follow-on resources of nearby law enforcement responding and coordinating with the SSD on scene.
At the same time, additional police units begin to arrive on the scene and enter the building responding to stimulus. SSD1 communicates with responding resources the location of discovered victims if possible.
SSD1 to Orange 91, advise additional units. There are several injured victims in building 400. I need units to respond to victims' locations and back up my location.
So we know the SSD arrived first on scene. He neutralizes the threat. Follow-on resources coordinate through him over the radio and realize there's victims, then need triage. The suspect's already neutralized, so now first responders are resorting to medical aid. This moves us to the deny. We just covered a void, leaving the immediate area, calling 911 safe to do so. Now we're at the deny phase. We're going to lock the door if you can't get away from the attacker. Primarily, if we could avoid and run, we are going to. If you find yourself in the scenario where you can't avoid or run, we deny by locking that door. You're going to turn the lights off, give the room you're in the appearance of being empty, and you'll have the advantage of being inside the darkened room and having your eyes become dark adapted in case you must defend yourselves. Silence your cell phones and stay out of sight. We talked about the stress levels on your body, and now imagine during a high stressful situation, you're trying to stay out of sight, you lock that door, and now you're trying to go on your iPhone and lock that little switch to put your phone on silent. Knowing beforehand that if you find yourself in a situation, how are we going to lower that volume as quick as possible? We don't want you to hide. Somebody call you to make sure you're okay because it's now becoming fast news spreading, and now they blow your cover because your phone's on max volume. You stay out of sight. Depending on the room you're in, you might have windows on your doors. You might have windows open in the classroom. Do not put your head to those windows. Do not look to see if somebody's coming. Trust your training that you're going to get, and hopefully they walk by and move down the hall and keep going until police respond and they're able to attack and neutralize the suspect. We're going to talk about barricading your doors. This is part of the denial stage. Heavier equals better, more equals better, and a doorstop is even better. So we talk about an inward swinging door. So imagine your residence, your office you work in, or the school setting you're in. If I'm in the room and the door opens towards me into my classroom, that's an inward swinging door. To fortify that door by barricading it, we're going to use furniture objects inside the room to barricade any access points. Desk, filing cabinets, tables, chairs, any large objects that are good for barricading. This is everything in the room. This isn't like, hey, 4 desks should do it, 1 desk should do it. If there's 30 pieces of property in that room, all 30 pieces should be stacked in front of that door, right? We're going to lock it, turn the lights off, fortify it with barricades, and then move out of sight. If everything on the off chance is bolted to the ground and we can't move any large objects in front of that door, if necessary, you could sit on the ground and use your feet to brace the door. You're going to stay low and have a plan of that door is forced open. This isn't a primary choice. This is saying there is nothing else to stop somebody from coming in this door, and I need to stop it. You're going to sit on your bottom, put your feet out in a little tripod, feet flattened against the door, and have some kind of counterweight against your back. So when he goes to force open the door, you don't just slide across the classroom. We want to make sure that door is as fortified as possible. Outward opening. So imagine the same classroom setting or place of work you work in, door opens away from you, that is the outward swinging door. You could use ropes and tension sleeves. They have commercial locks that are available for you to purchase. We talk about the ropes and tension sleeves. You could use a strap from a shoulder bag, a belt, any kind of item you have in that classroom to put around the door handle. You're going to wrap it around yourself so you have leverage of body weight, and you're going to lean back to put as much pressure from that door from opening outwards. We are still going to barricade and fortify that door with as much furniture as we can. If they're able to open up that door, which is outward swinging, and you're like, why would I have all this furniture stacked in front? We know the national response is 3 minutes for police to arrive on scene, and an active attack event is less than 5 minutes. We would hope that the suspect isn't going to spend several minutes trying to get through all the desks, cabinets, tables, and chairs you put in front of that classroom. He's going to see that you overwhelmed him with fortification, and they're going to keep moving. We're not passing the buck to somebody else. We're hoping that everybody else's school, facility, or business is following the same procedures so they have zero access to any of our people. On the next video, you're going to see the contact team enter and they're going to render aid. So we know once the suspect's neutralized, our job next is to render aid to anybody that needs it.
Contact Team 1 also discovers numerous injured civilians in multiple classrooms. At this point, Contact Team 1 has two objectives: stop the killing by neutralizing the threat, but also to stop the dying. Contact Team 1, considering the situation, available resources, and ability to communicate, can provide immediate tactical emergency care to the injured if life-saving measures cannot wait.
So as you saw the video, contact team enters, they have free access to the room. This is a mock scenario. We're not putting blame on any of the role players, but if you look back through that video, there was tables, chairs, and every other kind of items they could have fortified and barricaded that door from. And that's what we're looking for when we say, hey, barricade your door with as much furniture as possible. What you do matters. Remember, at the end of the day, we want you to avoid a run, deny defend. If all else fails, you have a legal right to defend yourself. Legal right doesn't automatically equate to having the ability to defend yourself. That part must be practiced. If you've never carried a firearm, if you carry an edged weapon but you don't train with it, if you don't train mixed martial arts or have any kind of background, and you think today's the day, I'm going to confront this suspect over open ground and save the day, it may not be the time for it. You might now become more of a victim and enabling him to the classroom. In most situations, victims will outnumber the attacker. If you could swarm the attacker while he's at a disadvantage, that can save lives. So as we're doing the denial, we fortify the door, we refused entry in. If on the off chance they're able to gain access, that's where you have that quick action plan to the other people in the room who are willing and capable and say, hey, if for whatever reason this person gets in this room, we are going to attack as fast and as violently as possible. This isn't a street fight where we're looking just to win and walk away. We're looking to incapacitate and neutralize this suspect so he does not hurt anybody else that we care about. We are not fighting fair. We are using improvised weapons and we're attacking weak spots. It seems very hard to hear in a civilian class saying, like, you want me to do whatever it takes? I told you before, fear is not an option. We move to anger. This is a personal attack. They're trying to take you away from everything you care about. This isn't another human being. We are stopping this person from killing me or somebody else I care about, and we'll do whatever it takes to survive and go home. You're going to position yourself where you can surprise the attacker, near the door, along a wall, and out of sight. We don't want to be too far back in the classroom that if the door does get breached, and now we're encountering the suspect, that I have to cross 20 feet of open air. I want to be out of sight near the door, but close enough that if he does make entry, I can grab the firearm, point it away from me and the other victims, and the swarm from our quick action plan is attacking their head, their eyes, their groin, their knees, their feet of the attacker. We are looking to hurt and incapacitate them. Use weapons of opportunity. Use scissors, coffee, staple guns, fire extinguishers, or any other objects that incapacitate someone. This is deadly physical force. They are actively killing people we care about, and we are stopping this. You have the legal defense to stop it. Tell yourself you win at all costs. Refuse to give up. Professional athletes, before they start a game or some kind of exercise, you see them close their eyes, they envision winning. You have to do the same thing. We are not victims. We are not falling victim. We will not accept loss. We will accept only victory, and we will go home. You have to turn that fear into anger. If you were shot and you're not incapacitated by the injury, you will continue to fight for your life. This isn't Hollywood where I take a gunshot to my leg, arm, chest, and I fall back 5 feet. I'm still going to fight through that injury, because if I don't, and you decide, hey, I got shot in the leg, it hurts, I'm just going to lay on the floor, you're going to become a victim. You will keep fighting at all costs until you have nothing left to give. In this video, police responded to the scene already, neutralized the threat. Follow-on police are now rendering aid. Once the scene is safe, we hit that warm zone, we could bring EMS in to give a higher level of medical care.
Once law enforcement has secured a safe corridor, medical personnel will be escorted into the building by additional law enforcement officers. The team of emergency medical service providers and firefighters will assist in providing further medical aid and the evacuation of injured victims. Simultaneously, ambulances will arrive on the scene. Victims will be evacuated and transported to local hospitals based on the severity of their injuries, as recorded by medical professionals on scene.
So simultaneously, everything's happening. That's called the Rescue Task Force. They're coming in, they're providing a higher level of care, and they're going to start coordinating getting those injured personnel out once deemed safe in the hallways. Now what? The police are arriving on scene as all this is happening. We need you to follow our commands, show your palms, and do not move. As simple as it says, show your palms. It's to make sure you're not reaching to your pockets, your waistband, purses, book bags, briefcases, whatever it is, into your hoodies. We want to make sure that if I get a description that the suspect is a white male wearing blue jeans and a hoodie, and I show up to a school or building and there's several other people that match that description, that I don't also believe they're a suspect. The active attack call will bring a response from all nearby law enforcement. I promise you, once 911 gets notified of a confirmed active shooter, you will see every jurisdiction in Orange County on scene as fast as possible. We just need you to allow us time to get there by following the models we described. Uniformed officers may not be first on scene. You may have detectives and plainclothes officers. They may have long hair, beards. They will have identifiers of a vest, a badge, something on their waistband, or around their neck. Law enforcement priorities, as I've said in the past, our first focus is to stop the killing, stop the dying, and then evacuate the injured. You'll see in the next video, we're doing a systematic search of secondaries. We know that 98% of active attacks end alone. We want to verify that that 2% isn't happening at our event, and we're going to clear each and every structure, and we'll start evacuating the school or building as needed.
Law enforcement personnel will conduct secondary searches to ensure there are no additional threats or injuries. Once the location is deemed to be secure, a systematic evacuation of the building will begin. Uninjured civilians will be escorted and transported to a secondary location if necessary. After the building is completely evacuated, law enforcement will maintain control of the crisis point until a thorough investigation has been completed.
So as you see in the video, we still have to complete secondary searches to make sure there's no outstanding suspect or injured personnel. Obviously, the video is very short, and you'll see the evacuation. A lot of people in the audience say, like, hey, what takes so long to evacuate my son, my daughter, my loved one? Once we confirm that the school is safe, we have the reasonable transportation, that's how we're able to get them in and start evacuating. It does take some time. Our priority as law enforcement is to confront the attacker. It seems very hard to believe that when you see on the news, body cams that's getting released, that you're stepping over innocent civilians that are hurt and screaming for help, while there's still an active stimulus taking place. If we don't move directly and confront and neutralize the threat, we're just now allowing more victims. So we have to keep proceeding and neutralize the threat. Once that threat's neutralized and placed in custody, we're going to start triaging the injured personnel. Evacuating the building is one of the last things we'll do. And that's why those events take some time when you see it throughout the county, whether it's through the Galleria Mall or local schools in Orange County for the drills we've had, it does take an abundant amount of time. It's important to understand these scenes will be chaotic, just as stressed out as the civilian is. First responders are also going to be stressed. You'll be treated as an unknown until you've been positively identified as not a threat. If you match the suspect's description, we're not trying to profile or negate what's happening. just you met the last description. Officers will also be experiencing high levels of stress, and it's important that you respond to law enforcement appropriately. Follow all commands, whether you feel they are reasonable or not. Be prepared to place in handcuffs or have your restricted movement. It's not common that we're placing everybody in handcuffs, but if we're unsure of the situation we're in and you meet the particulars for the event, you may be placed in handcuffs. Once we can positively identify you that had no involvement, the handcuffs come off very easily. Keep your hands visible at all times. Don't reach for your cell phones. Don't reach for your wallet or any kind of identification until we ask for it. And move only when directed by officers on the scene. If you do know of another threat in your immediate area, notify the local police as soon as possible. You might be asked to do something against your policy, but the officer's orders trump your company or school policies. Know in a real event, we'll be working with your school faculty and your corporation that you work for, and knowing that we're not asking too much of the policy, but we have to get you out and safe as fast as possible. EMS will not enter the building until it's deemed safe, so we always wonder why it took so long for EMS to come on. Most of them don't have a safety vest with bulletproof power. They don't have a gun belt to defend themselves, so we can't just bring more unarmed personnel into an active scene. Law enforcement inside the structure will be your initial medical providers, and it's recommended that everybody in here, depending on what you're doing for work or off duty, see some kind of control the bleeding training. You may be asked to assist in medical care. If I show up with 2 or 3 other officers and there's 20 victims and you're in the general area and I ask you for help, it'd be great if you said, yes, I understand how to give pressure. And it would at least stop that bleeding and increasing more victims from happening in front of us. Once enough resources have arrived on scene and secured the immediate area, we'll first start to evacuate the injured by ambulance to nearby hospitals. And then a systematic clearing of the building will be conducted by law enforcement to know the building is safe. And then we move into what happens next. This is all situationally dependent, so we can't give you a textbook answer. We know if this happens at a school district, once the scene's secured safe, we will most likely transport you to a family assistance center where you'll be reunited with a legal guardian. If this is something that's off duty, you're at a retail shopping center, and you're of legal age, you might just have to get brief police report, what you saw, what happened, where you were, name information, and you'll be released from scene. Know with these family assistance centers, they offer a lot of referral services. This is going to be a traumatic event for you, your coworkers, the students. They're going to need trauma-based services that are going to be offered towards the family assistance center. This isn't a 1 week and we're over this. There's people through past research that have been in an active attack event that has long-lasting damage of 20 years that they're still dealing with trauma-based services. And that's where it comes into you, depending on where you work and what you do, to sit down with your school or your corporation and say, hey, what are we looking for after the fact? We have our policies for lockdown drills, but what are we doing to take care of ourselves after this happens? So that's the presentation for civilian response to active shooter event. In closing, we know you're going to be stressed. That's where the scripting and planning comes into place. Remember the model: avoid, deny, defend. If you can get away from a bad situation, leave immediately. If you can't avoid, we're going to deny access by fortifying our doors. And last resort is to defend ourselves at all possible cases. Thank you.